Well, hello and welcome to the 4 p.m. Grizzly Growl. And I've got a story for you today that is truly, truly disturbing. I don't know if you read the synopsis. If you have or you haven't, I'm going to tell you about it in a second here. It's something that when you read about this, when you see what is happening, it's going to shake you to your core. And I stumbled upon this story earlier today when I was reading another story about this entire situation. And what had happened was I was reading story A, and it led me to story B. Story B is an in-depth investigation into a company in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Now, this is from the CBC. It's been fully vetted and well written. The story I was reading this morning was released yesterday, 4 a.m. yesterday. So it was quite early in the morning, but I didn't read about it till this morning. And the story is about a woman by the name of Susie Silvestri. She is an American. She was an American ALS patient. For those of you who might not be aware of what ALS is, it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It was once famously known, and that it's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, if I pronounced that correctly. There is no recovery from it. It is terminal, and most people survive 5 years, some longer, and some much longer. In the case of Dr. Stephen Hawking, he lived for decades somehow. That's why he couldn't move or speak or anything of that nature. This is a very debilitating disease that robs you of muscular control, amongst other things. Anyway, this woman, Susie, I'll give you the quick rundown on her story, and then I will get into the story I want to cover today, and we can look at other things later. But Susie was 70 years old, an American woman. And it says she found herself in the vice grip of her rapidly progressing ALS, a disease that causes gradual loss of muscle control. She was begging doctors at the Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan hospital for a feeding tube, but they said no because her U.S.-based insurance company wouldn't pay a bill. Sit with that for a moment, okay? Because what the hell? We'll talk about Susie a little bit more later, but I wanted to lead off with that to let you know how I got to where I am right now. And the following story, it was written by Jeff Leo, who is a senior investigative journalist with the CBC. This came out in June of this past summer. And this was the story I was led to after reading about Susie. I'm not going to read the entire story to you today. I'm just going to go through it for a little bit, and we can discuss it what needs to be done and the changes that need to be made so that this doesn't happen again. But it's still ongoing. So ALS patients and their families say they wasted tens of thousands of dollars in some of their last months on a Moose Jaw-based treatment program that failed to deliver what it promised. Jeff Sando learned of his death sentence through an annoying conversation with his wife. In the summer of 2023, he and Teresa were out for a walk near their home of South Los Angeles. I started noticing that he was walking kind of strange, Teresa told the CBC. She mentioned it to Jeff. I was actually getting a little upset, if I'm being honest, that she was pointing it out, Jeff recalled. But she was right. From that moment, his condition just got worse. For the next few months, he underwent tests, spoke to specialists, and received treatments. Then on March 15th, 2024, his neurologist called him in for a meeting. The doctor told Jeff he had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. It was pretty devastating when he tells you you have something that there is no cure for, Jeff said, and you're just slowly going to die. 80% of ALS patients die within 5 years, just 10% survive a decade. Pretty sobering numbers. The ALS Society of Canada says there's no known cure, adding that, well, there are treatments available. Most focus on symptom relief and do not significantly alter the progression of the disease. The plan of action was for you to go home, get your affairs in order, because you're going to die in the next 2 to 5 years, Jeff told CBC, breaking into tears. The news launched him on a desperate search for a cure that would lead him to a small facility in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, run by a man making stunning claims. Now, I'm probably going to butcher this gentleman's name. It's spelled D-A-Y-A-N. Dayan? I'm going to call him Dan. I don't know if that's correct or not. Dan Goodnow. Dan Goodnow, whose website refers to him as a world-renowned neuroscientist, says his supplements and treatment program can halt the progression of ALS symptoms and set patients on the path to recovery. There was no hesitation, Jeff said. There was no other treatment that claimed it stopped progression that we could ever find. Jeff and dozens of other ALS patients have spent tens of thousands of dollars and months of their time receiving Goodnow's treatment in Moose Jaw. Treatment, experts say, is unsubstantiated, expensive, and troubling. Here's a clinic in Canada offering an unproven, completely unproven, scientifically questionable therapy, said Timothy Caulfield, a University of Alberta law professor who specializes in the legal and ethical issues surrounding medical research. We absolutely need to have the regulatory mechanisms of policy levers to stop this kind of things. Jeff was filled with fear and hopelessness after his diagnosis, but Teresa, who's a nurse, wasn't ready to concede. I told Jeff, don't even say you have ALS. Don't own it. Something caused it. Let's figure out what triggered this, she said. That inspired hope and a hunt for a solution. There's got to be something out there that the FDA or medical science hasn't approved, he said. When it's the alternative just sitting around waiting to die, you're willing to try just about anything. Jeff, a CEO of several companies in his mid-60s, was an active golfer and wakeboarder before his diagnosis. He evolved rapidly from limping to a cane to a walker to a wheelchair. He lost his ability to type, feed himself, or use a toilet without help. One day last summer, Teresa came across a YouTube video featuring Diane Goodnow. Jeff instantly recognized, something different in his tone and his claims. In one video, Goodnow says, ALS is a serious disease, but it can be beaten. In another, he says, stopping the progression of ALS actually isn't that hard. It really is just biochemical math. Goodnow is not a medical doctor, but he does have a PhD in medical science with a focus on psychiatry. He's a listed author on dozens of academic papers on a range of topics from Alzheimer's to cancer screening to mass spectrometry. Jeff decided to reach out. I got to try something, and this guy seems to have the best idea out there. The sales pitch. Late last summer, Jeff and Teresa met with Goodnow and his chief business officer, Tracy Zimmerman, on a series of video calls. Teresa recorded the calls and provided them to CBC. Jeff, we expect you to get stronger, Zimmerman said. We have a 100% success rate in stopping the progression and restoring function of people with ALS. Goodnow echoed those claims, saying it's clearly, unambiguously possible to get better. How exciting is that, Teresa asked Jeff. That is very exciting, because if you go to the doctors here, you just get nothing but bad news, Jeff replied. Goodnow agreed with Jeff's critique of the medical industry, saying they really do fail on diseases like ALS. Michael Geiselman and his wife Shannon, also from Southern California, were checking out Goodnow's program last summer as well. Michael, a 57-year-old sales director and former U.S. Navy pilot, was diagnosed with ALS in April 2022. His condition was quickly deteriorating. He had difficulty breathing, swallowing, and speaking, and was unable to walk. Goodnow offered hope. Even if you take a look at some individuals that were in worse case than you with loss of full hand movements, we get their muscle function back. We get their lung function back, he told them in a video call. You are not going to die of ALS in our care, Goodnow told Michael. That's just the God's honest truth. Zimmerman told them that the fix for ALS is actually well known in the scientific community. It's sad, but the scientists have actually known how to reverse ALS for decades, she said. I'm not putting down pharma in any way, but the same companies that profit off you being sick are not going to be the companies that are going to bring you a cure, and anyone who believes that is deluding themselves. Just breathe that one in for a minute or two, okay? The most persuasive part of the pitch for Michael was the testimonial offered by Corey Mitchell in a video on Goodnow's website. It features the bearded 49-year-old telling his story of ALS recovery and saying the disease had completely stopped progressing. I'm starting to feel like time is on my side, he says in the video with a scratchy voice. Michael was sold, but Shannon was skeptical. She asked to speak with Mitchell and his partner Jennifer about the treatment, but after the phone call, she remained unpersuaded. I didn't believe any of it, she told CBC. She said she was frustrated by Michael's gullibility. I could barely restrain myself. How can my husband believe, she asked herself. My husband is the most skeptical person on the planet. But this is what's so sad about the whole thing. That's how desperate these poor people with this disease are. Michael signed up for Goodnow's home delivery program. 4 months of supplements shipped to his house, supported by staff who conducted regular testing and provided advice. On the call, Shannon and Michael explained that they weren't certain he would survive until the end of the 4-month program. They asked if the price could be prorated on a month-by-month basis. Goodnow said no. The reality is we have more people than we can take care of right now, he told them. I'm sorry, it's not what we do. So they paid the full amount up front, $90,000, U.S. funds. A trip to Moose Jaw. Goodnow offered Jeff Sando a different solution. 3 months living in Goodnow's restorative health center in Moose Jaw, about 60 kilometers west of Regina, followed by a final month back in Jeff's home in Southern California. Goodnow has converted a 2-story former drug rehab center on the edge of town into a wellness center for people with neurodegenerative diseases. It's not a fancy place. Like, we call this place boot camp, Goodnow said, as he toured CBC around the facility. You're not here for us to pamper you. We're here to get you out of here, like this is rehab. His clients, mostly ALS patients, live in dorm-like rooms and eat cafeteria-style food. Goodnow says the program offers occasional lectures, testing services, physiotherapy, and opportunities to interact with other clients. Jeff said the center was billed as a place for healing, where you could just rest, relax, and recover. The facility is just the beginning of Goodnow's plans for his hometown. In April, he announced the Moose Jaw Vitality Project, which his website describes as a $100 million community health initiative, providing free access to cutting-edge health services and monitoring technologies for all residents of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. I'm sorry, what? Goodnow says the program will transform Moose Jaw into Canada's next blue zone, a place where living past 100 is the norm, not the exception. The project is planned to involve 5 facilities, including the Restorative Health Center, a cafe, and a facility that will manufacture Goodnow's patented plasmalogen supplements, which he has manufactured in the United States until now. The time has come, though, to incorporate these advanced technologies into routine care and into public health, he said in a video on his website. Our goal is to use Moose Jaw as a beacon to the rest of the world to say, here's what a community who engages with each other can actually achieve. Plasmalogen supplements are the core of Goodnow's ALS program. He says that they are special fats that are crucial for building cell membranes in the body, essential molecules for brain and heart health. Now, just as a footnote, it's plasma spelled L-O-G-E-N, so I don't know if it's plasmalogen, plasmalogen, plasmalogen. I'm just going to say plasmalogen. Just a footnote. I have no idea what it is. Goodnow says people with neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, autism, and ALS have a plasmalogen deficit that he can fix. Deficits, right? A plasmalogen deficit that he can fix. It's basically human biochemical engineering, he said on Dr. Amy Novotny's Reawaken Your Health podcast late last year. If you actually provide the cells of the human body with the ingredients that they need and then put yourself in an environment that stimulates that adaptability, the body will fix itself. The total cost of the 4-month live-in program is $75,000 US. Jeff and Teresa were sold. I was really going to work hard to be the most improved, he said. I'm going to leave it there for now. This is just people profiting off of somebody's illness. It's disgusting. And when I get to the rest of the story, when you hear the rest of the story, you will be angry. You will want to wring somebody's neck. It truly disturbed me to the point where I had to tell you about it today. And I have to tell you this story from the CBC. And I will tell you Susie's story as well. Because it's all a grift. Desperate people who know they're going to die if they don't do anything are promised something that will give them their life back. So they empty their wallets. I think you know how it all turns out. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. For today, well, this has been your first of what I hope to make a daily Grizzly Growl. Until we meet again, my friends, you take care. I will talk to you soon. Bye. Picking up where we left off from yesterday, this is part 2 of medical fraud. To recap what we discussed yesterday, I'm going to go over a few things here. We were talking about Jeff and Teresa. Jeff and Teresa were sold on the idea that Dan Goodnow told them that it's basically human biochemical engineering. He had stated on Dr. Amy Novotny's Reawaken Your Health podcast late last year. He says if you actually provide the cells of the human body with the ingredients that they need and then put yourself in an environment that stimulates that adaptability, the body will fix itself. Total cost of the 4-month live-in program is $75,000 US. Jeff and Teresa were sold on this. I was really going to work hard to be the most improved, Jeff said. Questions emerge. The couple arrived in Moose Jaw in early September 2024. It didn't take long for questions to emerge. To them, the facility didn't seem set up for people with serious degenerative diseases and mobility issues. For example, the only way you get to the second floor, where the kitchen is a staircase, making it inaccessible for many residents like Jeff. Goodnow acknowledged that issue. We always laugh about the stairs, Goodnow said. People say, Dan, when are you going to put an elevator in your facility? He said, you can look at the stairs as part of the program. They'll come in not being able to walk or basically not being able to get out of a wheelchair. And the goal is, within 3 months, to get them walking upstairs, Goodnow said. Teresa said that once during an assessment, the staff left Jeff standing for too long, and he fell. He didn't go backward or forward. He just crumpled, she said. And neither of the staff caught him, and his legs were completely underneath him, and he was screaming in pain, and they couldn't get him up. That's when I became a little skeptical that, okay, they might not have the right personnel here to deal with ALS patients, Jeff said. He said he was surprised to learn that there were no doctors or nurses on staff. Goodnow told CBC he shouldn't have been surprised because we are not a medical facility. We do not provide medical care. Despite Jeff's concerns, he reminded himself that his primary reason for being there was the supplements. He still had great hope that they would work as promised. Self-directed research. Goodnow provided Jeff and the other clients with a detailed day-by-day list of supplements to take at 8 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., and bedtime. The protocol includes many familiar products like creatine powder, collagen, magnesium, and zinc. It also includes regular doses of Goodnow's patented plasmalogen-based products like NeuroPC Plus and GliaPC Plus. I have no idea what those things are. There is a copy I can show you of the, I will show you folks later, the supplement schedule protocol. It's interesting to say the least. Dr. Goodnow Restorative Health Supplement Schedule Protocol. I will share that with you later. At the bottom of the sheet, there was a footnote. This is a self-directed program. This protocol may be modified to suit your lifestyle and or preferences. There's the loophole. In an interview with CBC, Goodnow reiterated that point. We are here as a self-directed research process. People come in of their own voluntary will and they develop programs for themselves, Goodnow said. CBC asked Jeff about his this self-directed, in quotation, research idea. He said this was the first that had been brought to his attention and he never would have gone to Moose Jaw if he had known that was the deal. So the patient in this non-medical facility knew nothing about the self-directed research program. Had he known, he wouldn't have gone. He said, that's exactly the opposite of why I went to him. I went to him because he's the supposedly neuroscientist. I don't know anything about what to include. How am I going to self-direct? You tell me this is what I need to get better, I'm going to take it. Jeff said at no point did he develop his own program. The only thing I can figure out as a business person is that he's trying to limit his liability and trying to claim, well, this is self-directed. It's not really designed by me, it's designed by the patient, said Jeff. Timothy Caulfield, the U of A law professor who specializes in legal and ethical issues in medical research, agrees. Quote, he wants to avoid the claim that he's providing medicine, right? That he's acting as a physician, Caulfield said. And his defense will be, I'm just providing these people with information, and they're doing it themselves. For decades, Caulfield has studied and written about what he regards as dubious medical claims. He's written academic and mainstream books like Is Gwyneth Paltrow Wrong About Everything? And The Cure for Everything, untangling the twisted messages about health, fitness, and happiness. He reviewed Goodnow's website and said he's seen familiar patterns. We've studied this space for decades, and this is the go-to strategy. Heavily imply that you can cure the condition without explicitly saying you can cure the condition, Caulfield said. Caulfield said if Goodnow could really do what he's claiming, he should be publishing this in leading biomedical journals, having his claims and his data peer-reviewed by experts in the field, because it would be absolutely extraordinary. He said that the fact that this hasn't happened is telling. This hasn't happened is telling. If this individual really could do this, I promise you, we would hear about it, right? This secret treatment would not be secret, Caulfield said. And there's no evidence that I'm aware of that would support those claims. What's the evidence? Well, earlier this year, CBC asked Dayan Goodnow for an interview about the evidence that backs up his extraordinary contention that his plasmalogen-based program can halt the progression of ALS symptoms and set patients on the path to recovery. CBC asked if he could point to any published scientific studies that back up his claim. Not published at this point in time, he said. CBC asked why those studies hadn't been done. We're actually starting them right now, he said. I'm just in negotiations with them. And he added that these sorts of studies are not necessarily for our clientele and our doctor network. This is a nutritional supplement. It's food, basically, okay? It's restoring food. When pressed for evidence of his claims, Goodnow points to people that seem to improve while taking his supplements. Well, during the Moose Jaw facility, CBC spoke with 65-year-old Scott Myers, who had arrived from Akron, Ohio, just a few weeks earlier. Within the first week, I don't know if it was psychosomatic, but I had recovered the last movements that I had lost a couple of weeks prior to that, Myers said. Goodnow also points to Corey Mitchell in the video posted on Goodnow's website. The 49-year-old former race car driver says the disease has completely stopped. There's been no progression at all. Goodnow said the conclusion is clear. The actual progression of the disease can be stopped. Okay, fundamentally, unambiguously, his progression stopped, Goodnow said. It only takes one person to get better to falsify the hypotheses that this is a disease that cannot be reversed. David Taylor, the Chief Scientific Officer of the ALS Society of Canada, said this sort of claim is not convincing. He points out that ALS does not take a linear path. He said it's well known that patients can hit plateaus where the disease can appear to stop progressing or even improve. He adds that sometimes improvements can be attributed to placebo effects. It is well known that in any form of medicine, people who spend a lot of money, who go through a regimen that is more invasive, who have any kind of promises associated with a particular therapy, that those individuals do better with their disease, Taylor said. He said he has seen no scientific evidence that plasmologins can do what Goodnow has claimed. If it were something that had a good, viable piece of information around it, we would all be looking at it. The world would go there because there'd be a lot of incentive to want to learn more about it, publish on it, make people's careers on it, and make money off of it as a pharmaceutical company, Taylor said. You have an individual person's hypotheses versus an entire field of people who are spending every moment of every day trying to find the thing that's going to fix the disease. You're saying Corey is a lie? Corey Mitchell's partner, Jennifer Hoff, said she did see improvement in his condition after began Goodnow's treatment program in Moose Jaw in the fall of 2023. She said his speech and ability to walk seemed to improve. She said it's possible that Goodnow's plasmologins helped, but also pointed out that Mitchell's stress levels dropped and his diet significantly improved while at the Moose Jaw facility. We changed his diet completely, she said. Of course, changing your diet and getting your inflammation down in your body's going to respond. Sorry about that. I had to cough. Now I'm going to take a sip of hot chocolate. Ooh, that's tasty. Mitchell left Moose Jaw in early 2024, and his condition remained stable. However, let's try that again. Mitchell left Moose Jaw in early 2024, and his condition remained stable. Hoff said Goodnow was clear regarding his view of Mitchell's improvement. He literally told him, "You've beat ALS. You're in recovery phase. Now we just have to work on building your muscles," she said. In the summer of 2024, months after Mitchell shot his testimonial video, he and Hoff agreed to help Goodnow promote the program by speaking with potential clients about the changes Mitchell had experienced. Goodnow agreed to pay a stipend of $2,000 a month. We were getting bombarded with phone numbers of all these people. "Hey, can you talk to so-and-so about Moose Jaw?" Hoff said. Then Mitchell's condition began to deteriorate once again. Hoff said he was no longer able to speak, and so he couldn't promote Goodnow's program. Hoff reached out to Goodnow for help. Not even a phone call back. And that's when I started to be like, something's not right here, she said. Mitchell died on October 21st, 2024. What he died from wasn't from ALS progression, Goodnow told CBC. His disease did not progress to his death. He died from other causes. When asked how he knew that Goodnow... When asked how he knew that, Goodnow said, "Because he was functionally better last time I saw him. He was walking around." Goodnow last saw Mitchell in the summer of 2024.
Hoff said Goodnow's contention that Mitchell didn't die from ALS-related complications is a flat-out lie. I was there when he died. I held his hand. I watched him die. According to Goodnow, Mitchell's testimonial video remains on his website because he's still a symbol of hope, because he defied the odds. His caregiver, Jennifer, said he declined and died of ALS. All of Corey's improvements, all of the work that he put through to make himself better, was all bullshit. That's what you're saying to me right now, Goodnow said. You're saying Corey is a lie. Sold a bill of goods. Corey Mitchell's story was instrumental in persuading Michael Geiselman to sign up for Goodnow's ALS program. Michael died on December 19th, 2024, about 4 months after he began the program. He was just being sold a bill of goods, and I just had to let him, his wife Shannon said. That's how he chose to spend his last days. She said she watched Michael become a different person after learning of his diagnosis. She said the desperation to find a cure consumed him. It took away his whole spirit. It took away everything, she said. ALS is a no-win situation. The best you can do is just accept it and be happy right now and just live your life right now. Sorry. Jeff Sando is now back in California. His condition has deteriorated. Really didn't experience any halting of the progression while I was there or any time since, Jeff said. Actually, it seemed like it was picking up pace, not slowing down. He added that he became friends with several through the program and they have stayed in touch. And it wasn't just me, he said. Everybody had declined pretty significantly. Becky Batter is one of them. She was diagnosed with ALS in April 2024 and began attending Goodnow's Moose Jaw program in early September, one day before Jeff and Teresa arrived. According to her husband Eric, she was losing about a point a month on the 48-point ALS functional rating scale, a questionnaire that helps keep track of a patient's decline in speech, movement, and breathing. Then she began Goodnow's program. She lost 2 points the first month, 2 points the second month, 3 points the third month, said Eric, who attended the program with her. So her functionality decrease accelerated. Eric said he knows the disease is not linear, so he doesn't attribute her worsening condition to Goodnow's treatment. However, we definitely did not see any improvement. Absolutely not. Becky died on May 18th, 2025. When CBC pointed out to Goodnow that some of its clients said they had declined while on his program, he expressed doubt. So how documented is that decline? Do they have evidence of their decline, or is it just their opinion, he asked. We do document every single person that comes through our center, okay? They leave that center better than they came in, okay? And that's just simply a fact, okay? Health Canada steps in. Jeff and Teresa wonder how a facility like this is allowed to operate in Canada. Yeah, me too. They have filed complaints with Saskatchewan's College of Physicians and Surgeons and the Moose Jaw Police Service. They don't know where else to turn. Timothy Caulfield said this story highlights a real problem. Goodnow is not a medical doctor, so he's not under the jurisdiction of the College of Physicians and Surgeons. We need, as a society, to be able to transparently and appropriately stop individuals like this from doing what I think is clear and real harm, Caulfield said. The fact that we can't easily do it is really problematic. Some action has been taken. In January, Health Canada began investigating Goodnow's company. Following an on-site inspection on March 20th, 2025, Health Canada found the company was importing, advertising, and selling unauthorized natural health products, Health Canada said in a statement. All natural health products must be assessed by the government for safety before they can legally be sold in Canada. Health Canada says that since the inspection, the company confirmed they had stopped importing and selling unauthorized NHPs, natural health products. They also committed to not promoting unauthorized health products and corrected their website. Goodnow said Health Canada's concerns were based on a misunderstanding. He said individual clients are able to import up to a 90-day supply of the Plasma Logan supplements for personal use. He said some of those supplements had instead been shipped to his Moose Jaw company. What that meant was we had accepted shipment on behalf of a client that wasn't directly labeled, Goodnow said. The Health Canada inspector said, hey, you need to make sure that these things are properly labeled for the client that's receiving them. And we said, thank you. We'll fix that. Hope's dashed. Jeff Sando is now spending as much time as he can with his family. His adult children live in his house and help with his care. When he started this process, he had visions of coming home to a hero's welcome. I thought I was going to come home and walk up the stairs from my garage in here, he said. He justified the expense and the time away from family as an investment. Instead of 2 years with my kids, I would have 15 to 20 years with my kids, he said. Get to see my grandchildren. Be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. I don't know if I'll get to do any. He trailed off, overtaken by emotion. Jeff said maybe Goodnow has the nugget of a promising idea, but he hasn't developed something that stops progression in ALS. He's at best trying to figure it out. We are part of an experiment, and that's not what I signed up to be and paid him a lot of money for, to be part of a trial. Well, how's that for disturbing? I just, how on earth can somebody do something like that to people who are just, looking for hope? Hoping that they can better their lives. Hoping that, what they were sold, this bill of goods, this, I'm going to stop the progression of ALS and improve your life. How can somebody do that, tell somebody that, when they have no proof that anything works? When I read that story, I was sickened, and I was angry. And I thought, what can we do? Well, Health Canada is going to do as much as they can, but because he's not bound by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, there's nothing they can do to stop it. The only thing I think we can do is spread the word about this story. And then, of course, there's the story about Susan Silvestri. And that will come tomorrow in part 3 when I discuss further his day in Goodnow and his medical center that is not a medical center. Sells people a bill of goods. And, I mean, really, I think what he's doing is criminal. But I'm not a lawyer, so it's not up to me to determine that. But what he is doing is disgusting. He's giving people hope when there is no hope to be had. And that's just wrong. On so many levels. He'll get what's coming to him. Someday. Karma has a way of working out like that. Okay, thanks, folks. I appreciate you tuning in to check this out. Part 3 will be tomorrow, when I'll tell you all about Susie Silvestri and the tragic way that she passed away because of a lack of care. This has been your Grizzly Growl for Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. So I did want to share with you, yesterday I said I was going to show you the medical regime, because this is part 3 of medical fraud. I wanted to show you the self-guided routine of supplements that the folks that enter into this program are required to take, I guess. So I'll put it up on the screen here so you can see it. And it's a lot. It's an awful lot. And honestly, hard to swallow. It's the name of the story. So Jeff Sandoz, Dr. Goodnow, Restorative Health, supplement schedule protocol. And you can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a cocktail of medications 4 times a day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It just goes on and on and on. And right along the bottom, this is a self-directed program. This protocol may be modified to suit your lifestyle and or preference, which again, you go to a supposed medical facility for medical help, but they're not a medical facility. They don't have doctors on staff. They don't have nurse practitioners on staff. It's an organization designed to separate you from your money at the end of your life. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, come on, $75,000, $90,000 US for a 3-4 month stay and promising you that you will get better when you won't. See, hope is a wonderful thing when you have something to live for or have something to hope for. And I'm not trying to sound defeatist or negative here, but when it comes to ALS, there's no hope. You live your life for as long as you can. It is terminal. Until we have a big breakthrough, the eureka moment when they come up with something that will cure it or at least put it into remission. But right now, the thing is, ALS is an incurable disease. If you get it, just live the best life you can until you can't anymore. It's terminal, always. Anybody who has ever encountered anyone who's had it will tell you the same thing. There is no coming back from this. So this man is selling hope, literally selling it for thousands of dollars. And this whole 3-part series that I've been doing started off when I read about this American woman, Susie Silvestri, and her story exposes the Saskatchewan health regulation as the Wild West, says an expert. This came out on the 30th of November, so this was Sunday when this story came out, and I read about it first thing Monday morning. It came out at 4 a.m. on Sunday. I read about it Monday morning, and I sat there, mouth agape, in shock at what I just read. And I will recite it to you now. American ALS patient died alone after paying $84,000 US in pursuit of healing at controversial Saskatchewan facility. By early December of last year, Susie Silvestri was no longer able to walk or speak. She hadn't eaten for days. The 70-year-old American found herself in the vice grip of her rapidly progressing ALS, a disease that causes gradual loss of muscle control. She was begging doctors at the Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan hospital for a feeding tube, but they said no because her U.S.-based insurance company wouldn't pay the bill. And every single person who was a part of that can go to hell. You denied a feeding tube to a dying woman because her insurance might not pay for it? You have no soul. You clearly have no heart. Damn the torpedoes. When somebody is dying and you can give them some sort of relief, you do it. You don't question whether the insurance company will pay for it. My God, where's your humanity? I was so angry when I read that. I couldn't believe it. How can this be happening in our country? And yet it did. And it has. I'll continue. Starting from that last sentence, she was begging doctors at the Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan hospital for a feeding tube, but they said no because her U.S.-based insurance company wouldn't pay the bill. Nervous and scared, she texted her brother Chris Silvestri with her one good hand. This is not what I ever thought my life would look like at this point. Susie had come to Saskatchewan from North Carolina 3 months earlier, chasing the promise of healing offered by Dan Goodnow and his Dr. Goodnow Restorative Health Center in Moose Jaw. It's a private, unregulated facility that claims a 100% success rate in stopping the progression and in restoring function of people with ALS. Well, that's a blatant lie. Goodnow maintains that every person who enrolls in the program offered at the center leaves in better condition than when they entered. In her desperation, Susie put her home up for sale to pay the $84,000 U.S. fee. But former Goodnow employees said that as her condition worsened, Goodnow Center management left Susie to fight for her life on her own. She had to hunt for an American hospital that would install the feeding tube and find a way to get there. One of those workers, who ended up quitting her job at the Goodnow Center as a result of how Susie was treated, concluded these people had been taking advantage of vulnerable clients like Susie. Susie's brother, Charles, agrees with that assessment. I think they just robbed her because they had no way to take care of somebody in her condition, he said. Susie's situation is reminiscent of the stories shared by other Goodnow clients in the CBC story I read to you over the last 2 days. Goodnow has questioned those reports and filed a lawsuit against CBC, claiming its coverage of his program is defamatory. Cute. How much you want to bet he'll try and come after me? I'm just reading a CBC story. In an email to Goodnow and his company, CBC outlined the concerns raised in this story and asked for a comment. In reply, Goodnow's lawyer wrote, "No comment. We don't talk to people we are in active litigation against." At the end of her plight, Susie died alone in a U.S. hospital. Her predicament exposed serious gaps in Saskatchewan's healthcare oversight system as it relates to private businesses like Goodnow's that operate outside of it, according to an expert. Right now, Saskatchewan's the Wild West, said Dan Florizone. I hope I pronounced his name correctly. Dan Florizone, a former Saskatchewan Deputy Minister of Health. We've got to figure out a way to actually contain this. Buyer beware is not the principle by which we want to operate a health system, Florizone said. How could I not be healed? Susie Silvestri's ALS symptoms started to appear in October 2022, making it increasingly difficult for her to do what she loved, hiking and kayaking. She was diagnosed with the disease 1 year later. In her desperate search for healing, she came across the Dr. Goodnow Restorative Health Center. On his YouTube page, Diane Goodnow, the scientist who runs the center, claims stopping the progression of ALS isn't actually that hard. In text messages, Susie told her brother, Charles, "Dr. Goodnow has 8 patients in remission. I am number 9, and he is such a sweet man. How could I not be healed?" Goodnow says ALS is caused by a deficit in special fats called plasmalogens, and he claims his supplements can fix it through human biochemical engineering. If you actually provide the cells of the human body with the ingredients that they need and then put yourself in an environment that stimulates that adaptability, the body will fix itself, he said on Dr. Amy Novotny's Reawaken Your Health podcast last year. You heard that in the first day when I started to talk about this story. The supplements have not been approved by Health Canada for importation or sale in this country. However, the regulator does allow people, like Goodnow's clients, to bring up to a 3-month supply into Canada for their own personal use. Susie began taking Goodnow supplements at home. The cost was significant, leading her to ask for donations on a GoFundMe page in May 2024. The good news is Goodnow has a 100% success rate with his ALS patients, she told prospective donors on the GoFundMe site. Eventually, I will be hiking in the mountains once again. ALS is widely seen as a death sentence. 80% of ALS patients die within 5 years of diagnosis. There's no known cure, and existing treatments do little to slow down the disease, according to the ALS Society of Canada. But Goodnow insists his program works. Earlier this year, during CBC's investigation of Goodnow's facility, he said, "We do document every single person that comes through our center, okay? They leave that center better than they came in, okay? And that's just simply a fact." Susie, however, ended up leaving the Goodnow Center in a rented ambulance with borrowed medical equipment on her way to an American hospital, with little help from Goodnow or his company. No published scientific evidence. When pressed during an interview earlier this year, Goodnow acknowledged there is no published scientific research that backs up his claims that his program can halt and reverse the progress of ALS. but he says he's working on studies. The chief scientific officer of the ALS Society of Canada, David Taylor, said he has seen no evidence backing Goodnow's claims, and that if such evidence existed, scientists around the globe would be pursuing that research. You have an individual person's hypotheses versus an entire field of people who are spending every moment of every day trying to find that thing that's going to fix the disease, said Taylor. To prove his claims, Goodnow points to the testimony of some clients who say they've improved under his care. While touring the Moose Jaw facility earlier this year, CBC spoke with 65-year-old Scott Myers, who had arrived from Akron, Ohio just a few weeks prior. He thought Goodnow's program may be helping. Within the first week, I don't know if it was psychosomatic, but I had recovered the last movements that I had lost a couple of weeks prior to that, Myers said. But CBC's investigation found some families who said their loved ones kept getting worse while on the treatment. An $84,000 U.S. bill and a deadline. Eventually, Susie applied to Goodnow's live-in health center in Moose Jaw, believing that would help her get the full benefit of his approach. In late August, she was accepted under a tight deadline. This invitation is valid for 5 business days, the email said. The Goodnow Center also sent an invoice, $75,000 U.S. for the program and $9,000 U.S. for caregiving service. An additional fee because Susie had high needs and she would be attending the program alone. She needed her briefs changed, help getting in and out of bed, and assistance with feeding. The day she received that invitation, The day she received that invitation, she told Charles, looking at selling my home so I can go to a clinic in Canada. Her house didn't sell within the Goodnow deadline, so she found an alternative. She borrowed money because she couldn't sell the house fast, and she told everybody she'd pay them back when she sold the house, said Charles. She was trying like hell. When you've got a death sentence, you're going to try whatever you can. George, her other brother, is one of the people who lent Susie money. He was skeptical of Goodnow's claims, but he also wanted to support his sister. She needed people around her that knew she loved her. She needed people around her that she knew loved her and cared for her and had her best interests in mind, he said. Susie's soaring hope. Because of her advancing ALS, Susie decided to fly from North Carolina to Moose Jaw, spending an additional $20,000 U.S. on a medevac. I arrived to a room with a view, the delicious smell of wholesome, yummy food, and a super friendly staff, she wrote on her Instagram feed on September 12th. I am well on my way to recovery. Watch out for hockey pucks, they move fast and hurt, Charles joked in the text. Right now I'm looking out for mooses, Susie replied. Former Goodnow staff member Aldana Curbs said when Susie arrived at the facility, staff members were shocked. It was our impression, I think, that she required a way higher level of care than we were prepared to give based on our training, said Curbs. But she said Susie was under the impression that she would leave the building walking in 3 months. Curbs, who started with Goodnow Center in June 2024, said she was always baffled by how many clients arrived expecting healing. She would tell them, that's a wonderful long-term goal for you to have, but I have not seen that in practice over 3 months with every single client that I've seen. I personally have not seen that level of recovery. Curbs said she asked senior managers why so many people seemed to arrive with this belief that they would be healed. We were told that they weren't told that, and that they were just grasping at straws because that's all they have left, Curbs told CBC. She said management also suggested clients may have believed they would be healed because they have cognitive issues. After seeing CBC's investigation earlier this year and realizing some clients were told about a 100% success rate, Curbs put in her 2-week notice. I feel for all the people that participated and didn't get what they were promised, she said. It's terrible. This story it just goes from bad to worse. And I can't believe that this shyster is allowed to get away with this. $75,000, $84,000 she paid, plus another $20,000 to medevacers. $104,000 this woman spent for nothing. There is no cure for ALS. There's nothing that puts it in remission. It's terminal. This man says he can provide a 100% success rate when we all know that is not the case. Saskatchewan, you're better than this. You came up with the idea for universal health care in this country. The greatest Canadian, Tommy Douglas, Kiefer Sutherland's grandfather. Saskatchewan came up with universal health care. Saskatchewan, how are you letting this happen? I'm serious. How are you letting this happen? I mean, you did vote in Mo twice and he killed a woman, so maybe you're just not paying attention. But seriously, get up and do something about this. This simply cannot continue. This is inhumane. It's terrible that anybody would have to go through something like this. And it's allowed to happen. This story is not just heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, but it's really pissed me off. In a country with universal health care, we have a scientist who says he has a cure and has promised a cure, but there is no cure. If there was, if he legitimately could do what he says, I think every single one of us would have heard about this by now. There is no cure for ALS. It is terminal. And he's selling you hope at a time when hope isn't going to help you. And that, my friends, is disgusting. Especially when you consider how much he's selling it to you for. This poor woman spent $104,000 for nothing. I'll be back with part 4 tomorrow to wrap it up and give you some thoughts. Thanks for tuning in, folks. This has been your Grizzly Growl. I'll see you tomorrow. This is medical fraud. Medical fraud? Part 4. This story that has been haunting me for the last few days, and it all started when I read about this woman, Susie Silvestri, and the hell she went through at a medical recovery facility, I guess you could call it. If you want to call it that, it's not really that. Come on, it's a place where they separate you from your money by giving you hope in a hopeless situation. We'll pick up where we left off with the last couple of paragraphs and carry on from there. From a woman by the name, her surname is Curbs, said she asked senior managers why so many people seem to arrive with this belief that they would be healed. We were told that they weren't told that and that they were just grasping at straws because that's all they have left, Curbs told CBC. She said management also suggested the clients may have believed that they would be healed because they have cognitive issues. Now that sentence and statement right there is a dead giveaway that the whole thing is a scam. Let's go back to that. We were told that they weren't told. They weren't told that they could be healed. They're just grasping at straws because that's all they have left. Clients may have believed that they would be healed because they have cognitive issues. This whole thing is a scam. It's a scumbag who is scamming people out of their life savings in many cases at the end of their life, giving them hope when hope is not to be had. ALS is terminal. Saying we can cure people 100%. And then telling staff that no, we never told them that. These people are scum. This Good Now guy's scum. I feel for all the people that participated and didn't get what they were promised, Curbs said. It's terrible. If I could leave, I would. Susie's joy with her new environment did not last long. 3 days after arriving, she told Charles, her brother, "I'm having a hard time right now. Can't cough up and out the phlegm. If I could leave, I would. So difficult." That same day, she was taken to hospital and diagnosed with COVID pneumonia, according to medical records provided by her family. After a week in the Moose Jaw Hospital, she went back to the Goodnow Center where she was put in isolation so she wouldn't spread her infection. It was becoming increasingly difficult to take Goodnow's plasmalogan supplements. Today I just wanted to cry, started full protocol, torture taking all the supplements, Susie told Charles in early October. As a result, she wasn't able to take all of her recommended supplements all of the time. By early November, she told Charles, "I'm doing good. Saw Dr. Jeet yesterday. He is happy with my progress." Herb said she and the other staff worked regularly with Susie to improve mobility in her hands, feet, and arms, and found some modest success. However, during this time, staff took Susie to the hospital on multiple occasions. According to hospital records, Goodnow workers report that she is having difficulty expectorating phlegm due to the ALS and weakness. Herb said hospital staff were not supportive of Susie being at the Goodnow Center, and some suggested she should go home. Herb said Susie would exaggerate how well she was doing in the program out of desperation to continue. The nurses at the hospital would say, "So Susie, have you been able to get some more mobility from the program?" And she'd wink at you and go, "Yeah, mobility's getting much, much better." And it's like, we know that's not fully accurate. Goodnow facility unregulated. According to Susie's hospital files, attending physician Dr. Ryan Sanchez raised red flags about the Goodnow Center, warning Susie that any claims of efficacy may not be backed by scientific evidence. "I do have very serious concerns about her safety at that facility and whether she will be able to receive the specialized care that she requires with her advanced neurological disease," Sanchez wrote. The Goodnow Center is a private business, unregulated by the province, and has no ties to the Saskatchewan healthcare system, according to the Ministry of Health. In an email, government officials said the Goodnow Center is not considered a personal care home, so it does not require a license to operate. There is no indication it provides assistance to or supervision of a resident in performing activities of daily living, the ministry told CBC. Instead, the province said the Goodnow Center is more like an assisted living facility, offering food, lodging, and light housekeeping. However, on its website, the Goodnow Center says, "We take care of everything for people living in the facility, including blood testing, supplements, and rehabilitation support." Dan Florazone, a former Saskatchewan Deputy Minister of Health, said it's surprising that this facility is unregulated, given the level of care it offers and the condition of the clients it serves. "We've got care delivered to those with high needs to a vulnerable population in a facility that has not been inspected," said Florazone, who now teaches at the University of Saskatchewan's Johnson Shoyama Graduate School of Public Policy. "It's most likely that Goodnow clients haven't just given $100,000 to be in some assisted living setting." Curbs, the former Goodnow employee, said most clients had family members with them to provide care, and most were not in as dire a condition as Susie. But she said she and the other staff did regularly provide a significant level of care for Susie and a handful of other high-needs clients. "We would lift them a lot to take them to the bathroom, help them with their clothes," she said. "Some people couldn't lift their arms to eat, so we would have to feed them," she said. In Susie's case, Curbs would change her briefs throughout the day. Curbs said she always found it strange that the facility was not well suited for people with severe mobility issues like many of the Goodnow clients. For example, there was no elevator or lift to move patients from the first to second floor. Goodnow said his program uses the stairs as a source of inspiration. He told the CBC that clients will come in not being able to walk or basically not being able to get out of a wheelchair, and the goal is, within 3 months, to get them walking upstairs. Susie's brother Charles said it's infuriating that Goodnow accepted Susie into the facility, knowing her fragile, deteriorating condition, and that the provincial government allows this. "I mean, these people are declining, said Charles. "They've got to expect that there's going to be medical problems, and you don't have any facility to take care of them, you know? It's kind of crazy." Goodnow employee advocates for Susie. On December 3rd, a Goodnow employee arrived at work and was stunned by what she found. In a text message to a friend, she said that Susie had not been eating for a few days due to her not being able to swallow anything anymore. We know about this Goodnow worker's story because she shared her text messages from this time with a friend who shared them with CBC. This worker declined an interview. She also asked that the CBC not name her because of the trauma this situation caused her and concern about possible legal repercussions. Let me read that again. I screwed it up. Sometimes that happens. This worker declined an interview. She also asked that CBC not name her because of the trauma this situation caused and her concern about possible legal repercussions. The worker immediately took Susie to hospital and raised concerns with management about the care the Goodnow Center was providing. Ultimately, Susie came to us with hopes of recovery and improvement. The worker texted Jenna Hornsmall, the CEO of the Goodnow Center. I urge us to reassess how we can best support her during this challenging period. Horsnall, who is Goodnow's sister, replied that Susie knows that we are very good and give our best. That's better than any place anywhere. She added that Susie's in better shape than when she came. Horsnall told the care worker that she was taken off guard by Susie's COVID pneumonia, which was diagnosed a few days after she arrived in Moose Jaw. We would not have taken her if she needed medical care, Horsnall told the worker. On Susie's intake form submitted with her application, she said she needed a wheelchair and a mechanical lift to get out of bed. She also indicated she required help with bathing, dressing, and going to the bathroom. Self-directed research. While Susie came to the Goodnow Center expecting healing, she had signed an agreement with the facility to take part in a research program of sorts. A 20-page customer research agreement. She mentioned it to Dr. Ryan Sanchez at the Moose Jaw Hospital. In his notes, he wrote that Susie was under the impression that she was participating in a clinical trial, testing some novel agent for the treatment of ALS. When he asked a Goodnow employee if this supposed clinical trial has any research ethics board, approval, or institutional affiliation, the worker said he wasn't at liberty to disclose that. Sanchez warned Susie she likely is not participating in a legitimate clinical trial. In interviews, Goodnow described his program as self-directed research, telling CBC people come in of their own voluntary will, and they develop programs for themselves. When Susie paid her $84,000 U.S. fee, she also signed the research agreement, saying she was interested in collecting personalized clinical, behavioral, physical, and biochemical information, and using it as part of a self-directed research program to optimize her health and well-being. I have the document and I will share it with you later. Susie's brother George said he doesn't recall her ever saying she was going to Moose Jaw to conduct research on herself. Instead, he said that she went to Moose Jaw with the belief she's going to receive treatment and be healed. Goodnow's brochure promoting the program seems to fuel that expectation. It promises to provide ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer patients with a treatment plan that will restore their bodies to, in quotation, original manufacturer's specifications. The 20-page brochure focuses in detail on Goodnow's plan to restore, repair, and rehabilitate patients while mentioning the term self-directed just 2 times. Once on page 18 in a section saying, everyone is capable of becoming an expert in their own restorative health journey. The second mention is in a small print disclaimer on the last page saying the Goodnow Center operates a self-directed research model and is not a medical facility. George said Goodnow's customer research agreement seemed designed to protect Goodnow rather than help his sister. When I read the contract, it seemed like it was really written to absolve the clinic of pretty much any responsibilities, George said. It's all about, you're basically coming up here and you're on your own. Contract says the Goodnow organization will collect extensive data on customers during their stay at the program, and all of those documents and samples shall be returned to the customer upon request. Susie's sister, who has power of attorney over her estate, has requested this data, but the Goodnow organization has not replied. Susie looks for U.S. hospital. By early December, it was becoming almost impossible for Susie to eat. She began begging hospital staff for a feeding tube. However, her American insurance company wouldn't pay for the surgery at the Canadian hospital. and the Moose Jaw Hospital would only do the surgery on a non-Canadian in an emergency situation. Dr. Ryan Sanchez wrote, "I have encouraged her to consider returning back to her home country, as this procedure likely cannot be carried out locally," in a notation on her file. The Moose Jaw Hospital did install a nasal feeding tube, which Susie's insurance covered, but hours later she asked to have it removed as it was making it difficult to breathe. It was at that point that Susie knew she had no other choice. She had to leave Canada and head to the United States. She summoned the strength to hunt for a hospital in the U.S. that would accept her insurance and perform the surgery, and she had to do it virtually alone. Aldana Curbs told CBC it was heartbreaking to see little Susie with her laptop trying to figure this stuff out. Curbs said, while staff tried to help where they could, she said management should have made more of an effort, in my opinion, to call around and find her the appropriate services. Susie was able to find a hospital in Sydney Montana, I guess. Sydney, Montana. That would make sense. 4 hours south of Moose Jaw that might accept her insurance and do the surgery. The anonymous care worker stepped up to help, assisting Susie with hiring a patient transport vehicle and arranging the trip to the U.S. I'm strenuously working to support Susie through this challenging period, she told Goodnow CEO Jana Horsnall. The worker borrowed her dad's heart monitor and oximeter so she could keep an eye on Susie's health during the trip. I myself is not even qualified, she wrote to the friend who shared the text with CBC. I only operate through compassion. Throughout this process, I felt that there was a lack of support from the management at the facility, which made things even more difficult for both of us. The worker said Susie was being blamed by the center for not having a plan to get home. However, Horsnell disputed that. I assure you, Susie had a plan of how to get home, Horsnell told the worker. Her condition is not due to our care. We all have gone way above what was planned for her care while with us. I understand that she is desperate, but that doesn't make us the bad guy. We've done everything we can to support Susie, including paying you for assisting her in arranging her medical care, Horsnell texted. Who enforces the law? The Goodnow Center is very public about the fact it has no medical staff and is not a medical facility. Goodnow has a PhD in medical sciences with an emphasis in psychiatry from the University of Alberta. However, he is not a medical doctor and is therefore not a member of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan Health Minister Jeremy Cockrell told CBC that Goodnow is not a licensed medical doctor, so he does not fall under any established health regulatory body. In an email to the province, CBC pointed out that Saskatchewan's Medical Professions Act forbids non-doctors from offering to treat or actually treating medical conditions for a fee. Section 80 says it's against the law for someone who is not a registered medical professional to give advice or treat any disease or ailment by medicine, drugs, or any form of treatment, influence, or appliance. It is also against that law to advertise such services. CBC pointed out to the province that in Goodnow's brochure and on his website, he promises to create treatment plans for his clients suffering from neurological or inflammatory conditions, which will restore their health. The province told CBC that if someone believed the Goodnow organization was violating this law, they should contact the College of Physicians and Surgeons. The college shot back, saying the government is wrong. I disagree that the College of Physicians and Surgeons is the agency designated to prosecute offenses that the government of Saskatchewan has adopted into Saskatchewan legislation, wrote Ryan Salt, Associate Registrar and Legal Counsel with the college. There is nothing in the Medical Profession Act 1981 that supports that view. In response, the government acknowledged to CBC that there seemed to be some confusion on this point, promising a review to ensure there is no clarity on who enforces the act. To date, it still won't say which agency, if any, enforces this law. Dan Florizone, the former Deputy Minister of Health, said the government needs to sort this out, as there is a growing number of private businesses offering care on the edges of the mainstream system without much oversight. He said 30% of healthcare in Canada is privately delivered, and that number is going up. The legislation as it currently stands gives very few tools in the toolkit to be able to deal with this new and emerging type of entrepreneur, said Florizone. He said the Goodnow situation is a gift of sorts, as it has highlighted some key gaps in regulation. You don't represent us. Susie and the anonymous Goodnow care worker arrived in Montana on December 8th and were thankful the hospital agreed to help. Susie and I came here on a leap of faith without assurance if we are ever going to get accepted, said the worker. A few days later, Susie had her feeding tube, but her condition continued to deteriorate. Jana Horsnell urged the care worker to make sure Susie was taking her plasmalogan supplements, saying, "The doctors there may not understand them, but they are very good and will help." The care worker told Horsnell the doctor said no. According to the care worker's text, she stayed with Susie from December 8th to December 16th. She said, "Nurses are making sure I get to eat by giving me meal vouchers every day." Susie was desperate to go home so she could be close to her family, but she was losing hope and began to research assisted suicide. The Goodnow worker told Horsnell about Susie's despair in her research. Horsnell's tone took a dramatic turn. "I am shocked. You do not represent us," Horsnell wrote to the worker. "I know she hired you and you are there on your own with her. There's nothing to do with us." The worker replied, "Susie's not just a friend. She's an aunt to me now. Although Susie was willing to pay me, I declined." In a text message to a friend, the Goodnow worker described her reaction. "She gaslighted me into saying that Susie hired me in person to be with her, and that has nothing to do with her company, which was far from the truth," the worker texted. On December 16th, the care worker left Susie's side. That same day, she quit her job at the Goodnow Center. "I realized that these people had been taking advantage of vulnerable clients like Susie," she wrote to her friend. When CBC reached out to Goodnow about this story, his lawyer, David Brundage, replied, "We are hoping not to litigate this matter in the media." I am fading fast. On December 21st, 2024, Susie texted her siblings, "I am fading fast. We love you. Stay as strong as you can," her sister Nancy Riviero wrote. "We're working on getting you home." That was their last written exchange. In her final message, Susie sent a picture of a Christmas tree hospital staff had set up in her room. Susie Silvestri died on December 26th in the Sydney, Montana hospital. Her death certificate says she died of ALS with acute and chronic respiratory failure. Her brother George said he deeply misses her and is disgusted by how she was treated. We're preying on people that are looking for answers where there may not be any at this time, he told CBC, offering people false hope. And that's the gist of it right there. It's false hope. There is no coming back from ALS. His plasmalogan treatment may have a nugget of possibility in the future, down the road at some point in time. But in all honesty, and I'm no neurological expert, by far, I'm not a doctor, so don't take this with a grain of salt. But I think if we're going to fix a neurological problem like ALS, it has to be done by altering the human DNA, the genome, via CRISPR. And we could have a whole other conversation about that some other time. If you're not aware of what CRISPR is, it's CRISPR. You can look it up. There are tons of articles and documents. The woman who created this, the doctor who created, scientist who created this CRISPR software, won a Nobel Prize for it in medicine for advancing human knowledge. There are many things CRISPR will be able to do in the future, but right now it's not. It's not there. It's going to take a long time, and there's tons and tons of data. Perhaps with quantum computing and the assistance of AI and CRISPR, we can find a cure for ALS someday. And that someday may be in the near future, but it's not going to be via supplements that some psychiatrist seems to think will fix you. The guy's scum, and he's preying on people and taking their money at the end of their lives. These are not good people. They aren't. And we need to figure out a way to make them be held responsible for what they've done, because they have harmed people, and they did it knowingly. That's a heavy story. If you want to sit back and watch all 4 parts in one shot, by all means, please do so. If you can do me the biggest of favors, though, and share this short 4-part series with as many people as possible, because we need to get the word out about this. People need to know what is happening. People need to know that this is being done to vulnerable individuals at the end of their lives, because it's wrong. And I don't know what else to do other than spread the word, get it out there so we can lobby the provincial government. If you live in Saskatchewan, talk to your MLA. Please. We have to do something about this. This cannot continue. They're giving people hope when there's no hope to be had. I mean, this poor woman, Susie, died away from her loved ones because she was convinced, according to the documentation that he gave to her in the 20 pages of information that they shared, that, yeah, she was going to walk out of that door. That was never going to be the case. So please do me a favor, share this with as many people as you can. We need to get the word out. We need to get this fixed. If you're in Saskatchewan, please contact your MLA about this story. Reach out to them and tell them that you're concerned, because this just should not be happening. This has been your Grizzly Growl.